As Easter is now around the corner, I thought why not create something which is more to the topic or to the theme. So I have this lying around, which is a little bunny rabbit, and I thought we can do some kind of grooming today, and we will be doing that in Houdini, so go check it out. Hello everyone and welcome along to another episode where I'll be showing you how to set up some grooming, and this time we don't do it in Maya XGen. We'll be working in Houdini and their grooming tools. So what we do is we will use I have a model prepared. I modeled that on my own. It's not the best, as you know, I'm not a modeler, but I think it will do its purpose. Then we will bring that into Houdini and we will apply the grooming on it. We do some rougher groom for the bigger fur patches, and then we do the fine detail on the ears as well. So we were working mostly on the face here and then on the inside of the ears. So that is the goal, and you can follow along, and if you access my Patreon membership to get the source files, the full model and the Houdini hip files will be included. And the same applies to my YouTube membership. If you want to sign up, you can check the join button below and you can be part of my YouTube team, and you get the same privileges as on Patreon as well. And also before we jump in, I have a pretty active Discord channel with lots of 3D guys on it, look dev, compers, FX artists. So we are growing a little community over there, and you will be able to join with the link below in the description, and it would be great to see you over there as well. So without further ado, let's jump into Houdini and get started. All right, before we fully jump into this, I just wanted to open up my final project file. So this is what we will be creating. You can see it's a very nice detailed head groom. It has some thicker braids in here which replicate my reference bunny here, and then we've got the super fine groom around the ears, which gives you a nice fluffy look to it. So yeah, I think we will be starting from scratch. You can see it's nothing crazy going on. It's just like quite a few simple groom setups here, and then my main geometry. So I'll be starting from scratch. So let's just hit Ctrl N for new scene, and let's bring in the Alembic file. And I like to do that from scratch so you guys can follow along step by step. So first let's load in the bunny geometry. This is what it is. It's a skinny bunny rabbit. I tried to replicate this guy, so it's obviously not perfect, but I think it suits the purpose. What I want to do is unpack this first, so we have access to the polygons and all that data. Hook that up, and then I want to convert that. I'm not sure if this step is needed, but I always tend to do that. And then we just create a null for our output. So this is the file we'll be working with. Right, so this is the first steps we want to do, and we can jump right into the whole process, and I'll be just I think we will be just focusing on the thicker parts first, which is this longer groom here on this forehead and snout area. So let's just call this Geo Bunny here, and then I'll I select my object here. And in the grooming shelf, I choose generate guides, which should populate me the right nodes. There we go. So now you can see we've got the groom everywhere. What I want to do though is I want to paint some masks on it so it's only in the locations that I need it to be in. And to do so, on top level here, I can click on scatter on surface, and the density here, I can choose this to be a skin attribute, which will open up the density slot, and I just want to call it density long braid, and then I'll just create that, hit that paint button here. It will complain. I think that's just a bug in here, but it should have created this kind of thing on the skin, and I'll just need to connect that up to there. And let's see if everything is named properly. Everything looks like it's set up the right way. So if I now paint in here and I can flood it to be let's see, yeah, so we have a value here, and the default value is 1. We want to have it 0, so there's no hair, and then in here you can see we have something. What I want to do is change my overrides from ramped attribute to attribute as is, so I can see what I got. Actually, let's keep it as ramped and maybe just do a grayscale. Maybe. Yeah, well, the purpose is here to actually see if there is something on it or not. And I think this is pretty cool. So we can see blue, there is no hair, and red will have the groom. I'm also using a Wacom tablet here, which just gives me some more control on painting. So what I want to do now is just paint out the main areas of the fur, like these guys. And if we go up a level, you can see we have the density being applied, and now we should just be able to scatter more and more hair if we need it. This is just our guide geometry though, so keep that in mind. This is not the hair itself. This will just be to control the main shaping of, or the flow of the hair here. All right, so now let's jump into our grooming here. Let's just reduce the density for now. It's a bit much. Let's just try maybe 50 just to get our initial shaping going on. And we definitely don't want anything on the eyes, right? So before that, we need to make sure that we do not paint on the eyes. And actually, I want to remove them from our grooming selection. So I just hit S, double click here to select this whole eye, and double click on this guy to select this, and just hit delete, which will create a blast node, which will remove this hair. And then we can go back to painting, and then we don't generate the paint on there, which is perfect. And now this is what we have. And what I want to do now is just kind of get some chaos, some randomization in here. So in my grooming context, what I first want to do is do a curved vect here, which will help me to just paint on the mesh to get some direction on it. So just some rough drawing on here. So whenever I draw, let's say like this, you can see that the curves follow my painting direction, and maybe some go over to the left here, and then most of them just go in the front, and then it creates automatically these kind of partings and splicing and whatnot. We can do one to the side here. It just helps to sell the flow of the surface. And then in this volume velocity from curves, you can adjust the surface lift. So we can just lift them up again slightly, like they should not be lying on the head just so much. But after that, you can also just create another lift. Let's just move this out of the way, and there should be lift guides, which will kind of do the same thing. You can just randomize the lift, which is a bit nicer. So some are lying down and some are lifted fully upwards like this, right? And this is the first part of that. And the next would be to set the length actually. And I think we should set the length in here. There's a guide length node. We just drag it out here and plug it in the middle. And as a mode, I want to do multiply. And then I also want to do randomize, so I can actually make some longer and some shorter. So this gives me even more randomization. So we lift them up again. Now you can see they're all scattered a bit more, which is fairly cool. And I think the length is not long enough right now, so let's just extend this even further. Something like that. Okay, and then the next part would be to groom them somehow, or just add some variation to them. So what I always like to do is just add some frizziness to them. And on default, we don't have so many points on them for a nice detailed frizz. So what you can do, you go up one level, and in here, the guides, I think that you can add more segments to this. So let's just try 20, which should give us way more points on the guides, which will help to get more detail. So go back into the context. And now you can see already we get way more detailed frizziness on them. You can change the frequency because they are not really curled up. I just want to give them some kind of like lateral flow. Maybe this is even still too much. We can increase the amplitude somewhat. like that. And then we still want to reduce the frequency, so it's more like a really subtle, almost like a bend, like that, which seems to be working very well. And we can see we need to groom these guys downwards. So then we can just use some kind of surface brushes to just groom them slightly. So we want these guys, I need a screen brush. There we go. And I just want to, I don't know, move them downwards so they're actually facing into the camera a bit. Like that. So they're pretty much, these guys are just almost straightforward, like you can see it's in here. Even some are going downwards like this. And this is pretty much the part of grooming. So you just, you have your reference and you just try to follow the look of that, like by grooming, just moving the curves. And you can see they go over the hair, and we will paint more density everywhere else just to get a better read. But for now, this is what we have. Set length. I just want to also make them longer. And so yeah, I just have to select the guide groom node, and then we can do the adjustment. You can see now how they get shorter. We want to adjust the length, and we want to make sure that the target length is maybe 3. So this is the longest they could get, which is a bit long. So let's try 2. And this works, I think. So we can just increase the radius, reduce the strength, and then just slightly paint over here so we have a bit longer hair in the front. Like that. You can see now these are a bit longer, which is great. And this is more or less roughly the look. And then all the way towards the end, I want to do a clump guides, which will actually clump them together like this. Obviously, we do not want to go that extreme. We just want very subtly those clumps. But for this to work, we need a bit more density in here. So on the guides up top, I'll just increase the density to 150. And then for this to work, we need to recache our guide groom here. And then we should get more density. There we go. So definitely more density. Let's see the clumping working now. Okay, we can see we've got some clumps here. More or less three are clumped together, which is great. And what we want to do is, I just want to increase this first so we can actually see what's happening. And I want to adjust the width scale. So we get a bit thinner clumps in general. And then we want to stray, so a few hairs just go away, like fly off. Definitely we need to adjust the scale. We want smaller clumps, not so big ones like this. So we just have a few thinner ones in here. Let's just first save this to our capture scene file. All right, so now we have a few hairs clumped together. And we will do the main clumping actually on the on the hairs. I mean, we just want some kind of clumping to just get a general, like some, because you can see in here some are actually clumped together. All right, so then if we have this set up now, so let's see actually how it looks if we add some hair. So I'm selecting the groom, and on the left I do generate hair, which will do that. So now if I hide my guides, this is what we got. And you can see there's lots of weird things going on, like this here is not nice. So we need to adjust a few parameters. So on the hair itself, the first thing is the influence radius. And the larger this is, the more it looks for other clumps and it generates curves. So I just want to reduce that number here. And you can see by just reducing this, we got less hair. You can see how it spreads out, and if we reduce it, it just generates hair around its guides, essentially, like that. And we want that. We don't want to go too crazy. And you can see with the clumping now, these fibers are clumped together super dense. But my thickness is very thick for each hair strand, so I want to have thinner hair, maybe like this, but then a lot more so they are clumped together. And also these fabricated fake hair, they do not have like a tip, pretty much they are cut off in the top. So I just want to remove this guy and move my profile of the curve over so it's tapering only to the top here. You can see now they are not tapering as much. They are tapering slightly, but not too much, like this. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to generate a bit more hair. So let's go in here, general, and let's try maybe 500. And now we've got 500 hairs in here. You can see they are still clumped together, like going super tight towards the top. And that's because of the clump in here. You can see if I don't have that, they are spread out quite a lot. And the reason is that I have this tightness parameter here, and I also have, where is that? The width scale. So if I reduce that, the hair should go even thinner. But the most apparent value is this tightness. So you can see if I reduce the tightness, they are not clumped together as much. And we don't want that. We want more like these thicker, almost braids, I would call them, like this, right? So we get these bigger chunks of hair. You can see there's quite a few now clumped together. We might have a bit many guide curves, but I still think it might just work. Our profile right now is clumping from the center downwards. And what's happening right now actually is the hair is being clumped by the guides, right? So the hairs are being clumped in here. What I want to do though is I want to clump them in its own clump modifier. So if I disable clumping, there's nothing going on, not much really. And if I go into the hair now and I create clumps in here, clump guides, I can feed in the guides as my clump curves, like that. So now they are clumping with the guides, and this gives me a bit more control. I can add some curls to them if I need to. Obviously I don't want that for this guy, but if you wanted to, you can actually clump them. So now you have some curly hair, which it looks freaking cool, I think. If you want to do some kind of curled hair, this is the way to do it. Obviously the bunny's it doesn't have an afro or whatever, so we don't want curling, but this is the idea. So now we can see that we have some clumping going on. We have some control about the size, I think, using this parameter here. So we don't have control about the clump size itself because it's clumping around the guides, but we have the hair width scale, and this enables us to actually scale them, make the radius of each braid pretty thicker or thinner. We still have this profile here. You can see that at the bottom it's thickest and then it fades off towards the top, and we don't want that. We want it to be straight because this is almost straight, so it might be a little tapered towards the bottom, towards the top, but not as extreme as this is. So if everything like this works a bit better, I think. So we've got these thicker parts, and I think this works a lot better. Let's see, I think our thickness is not thick enough. And we want some strays. And then what we also want to do is we want to create some flyaway hairs, which like go like just single hairs going up, flying away. So there's like a guide mask thing which I want to create. And in this tool, you have the option to create a random mask. And you can see now it's selecting 10%. Now it's all the hairs. Now it's like 10% of the hairs. And we want to maybe do 20% of the hairs should like go crazy, right? So I'll just create another frizz in here, create that guy, hook it up like so. And then in here, I want to select a blend, should be a guide attribute and its mask. And now it's applied by this attribute here. I don't want to visualize the mask, so there's an option to unhide this. And I think in here as well. And now if I boost up the frequency, you can see only a few hairs are affected by this. Obviously it's way too extreme. Reduce the frizziness. We don't want to go crazy. And we don't want the amplitude to be that strong, right? So reduce the amplitude, just bring it in slightly, like that. You can see there is a few hairs now flying away. And this should be a subtle effect as well. It should not be too much like this maybe. So if I disable the node, you can see there's just some kind of more chaos. It's a bit more broken up, which is perfect. And then what I want to do is, I think we need to work on the clumps more. They don't feel super clumpy right now. So in here, we can just try to bring this in as well. So we now have clumps within clumps. And I think we also need to bring up increase the thickness of the fur. It's a bit thin in my opinion. Let's try 0.1. That's too much. 0.05. I think still too much. 0.25. And then we can reduce the amount of hair as well. So let's just reduce this to 300. Yeah, I think this is coming along a lot better. Looking at this, I'm not super happy yet with the look of this, and I don't feel we see those isolated braids just yet. So let's tweak it some more in the hairs here, and the hair gen. The clumping needs to get some more adjusted, because you can see it's super thick still, and if we reduce the clump profile, it gets better. We just need to tweak it some more like this, and we also need to adjust the tightness so it's not super thick anymore. Something more like that. And now you can see we get more these kind of thicker pieces. Thicker, almost like tree stems or whatever. So this seems to work a lot nicer. So what I want to do now is we can try to curl them now a bit, just to give them some kind of rotation. And in the clump we still have the curling option, so let's introduce that. But let's just not have it as tight, like the frequency shouldn't be as much. And right now this is also applied from root to tip, so we just wanted to have the same frequency and same amplitude from root to tip. We just want to reduce the frequency. So now you can see what's happening. Right now this is almost turned off, so we just slightly bring this in just to give some kind of really subtle rotation to them, like that. And now you can already see that they look more chaotic and more isolated, I think. More bent and clumped together, like little stems or whatever. And then what I want to do is I want to actually groom it properly. So let's first bring our stray hairs back, like this and this. So now you can see we still have our flyaway hairs due to the frizz. We can push it even further if we need to. Like that. We can increase the amplitude, so we get more like chaotic hair in between. And let's go up one level, and now let's hide the hair and let's do some grooming. So you can see that it pretty much has like a curve going over his head and then over the snout area. So in the groom in here, we can go into our groom guide groom in here, and we can do another screen brush, and we only want to target pretty much the tops, so we can check the full off. I'm not sure if there's a way to only target the tips, so we might just need to do this then. So let's just move them over here, like just calm it slightly over. And we also want to make sure that we don't have too much strength, so it's only a subtle movement, so we don't disturb it too much. So now they're groomed towards the top. These ones are groomed a bit downwards. Then we do a few to the side. Like this. So there's some slight amount of direction in here now. Nothing too crazy, but just some kind of randomized look, I think. So it's just something to break up the overall shape. Okay, I think now we can actually see nicely that there is some kind of direction, especially on the top here. They go to the left, these ones go to the right. So this works fairly cool already, I think, for his top hair. Hey, I hope you liked the video so far. So we just finished with the hair on the front of his head. We'll be painting some more density areas now around the ears, and then we will jump onto the fur on the ears as well. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for your continued support on my channel. It really keeps growing, and I really appreciate all the comments on Discord, on YouTube, on Patreon. It's really motivating me to just keep going and producing more content for you guys. And if you guys like what I do, as always, please leave me a thumbs up. And yeah, let's continue grooming that little bunny. All right, so let's go back to the geometry and go to our paint node, and let's just paint some more hair. So we want to paint around these areas. We want to make sure the snout, I think it's called the snout area is free of hair. Increase the brush size and just paint some more hair. Yeah. All right. So let's head out and see how the density is being applied. And I don't think you will see much because one caveat of using these guide grooms, they have cached strokes in them. So you would need to recache the strokes to actually populate it with your latest painted maps. It takes a bit more time because we have way more density now. Almost done. There we go. So now it's populated Groom all over the place, and it's working pretty good. We have a few areas here on the nose area and on the ears which we need to groom as well. And yeah, let's just jump into the guide groom here. Do a surface brush, screen brush, and let's just do some more grooming. Let's increase our strength so it's more responsive. Clean out these areas around the snout like that. So just getting always a bit closer and adding these kind of features, which is in the reference, obviously. All right, so this is now this. We want to do something around the eyes, but first we need to bring them back in. Right now I culled them out, right? So they blasted out of this bunny. So what can we do? We can just create a new stream in here. So before the blast, we go here. We don't want to generate hair. And I'm just copying this guy and I'm just doing the delete unselected. So now we just have the eyes and we just create this guy. And we just do out eyes like so. And then we can, essentially what we can do is just do another bunny and just call this bunny eyes. And from here, I guess there are way better ways to do this. We just do an object merge. And in the selection, we just go to the bunny and select the eyes. So now we have the eyes and the bunny, and this should be here. And then we should have both. Let's bring back this guy. And now we have this. So now we can just groom independently. We can groom around this. We can solve the intersection issues. So we can just use the surface brush here and just move the hair out of the way. Like this. And you can also use a screen brush to just move all the hairs at once so it does not affect the root so much, just the whole thing. So now we're just moving the hair over aside from over the eyes like that. And then we do the same on the other eye like this. Just free them up slightly. So this would be the first idea. And let's see if we bring back the clumps, bring back the hair. So now you can see how the eyes are more or less free. We can obviously spend more time to just get the hairs better around it. So obviously I'm just showing you the technique. If you have some grooms to work on, you would spend more time to make it look a lot nicer than what I'm doing here. We've got one stray hair up there, so let's just jump in here and just make sure that we get rid of this. There's must be some values in here. Let's see if this fixed that. Nope. I think we can also just remove it. I think it's cut. Gone. All right, so this is this part. So now what I want to do next is work on the hairs on the ears. And the problem with those is you can see in the reference image here is that it almost looks like they are in a grid pattern. You can see they are pretty straight and going like in a clean direction. And normally if you scatter hair, it scatters randomly around the surface. So I found a little technique. I'm not sure if it's the best technique, but it worked for me, and I think it worked well for these kind of applications. And how it's done is I'm just raying a grid onto pretty much like a paper wrap around the ear, and on that I'm generating the hair. So let me show you how I do it. I create a grid, fairly basic, like this. And then I isolate the alembic. And what I want to do first is I want to subdivide this guy like that. All right, so we can do maybe 2 iterations. Oh, we need to do it on here. There we go. And then I want to view through this, and then I have my grid at the bottom here. And I just want to move it up. So it's just going around the ear. And I want to move it down. And I just want to make it a bit like tilted, so it's matching the orientation of the ear. And then have it in front and maybe scale it on this and on this end. And then we do a ray. And I think it needs to be this way around. And we need to reverse it, and I think it's not the right direction. That's better. Show the guide, hide. So you can see now it's being folded, right? And the reverse is on default off, so nothing happens. We just want to push it downwards. And then we want to make sure we have more grids on here. So let's just boost this number up. You can see we're getting the ear shape here. We can move it like that. So now we have it fitting pretty well, and we can see now we have this grid pattern, which is what we wanted. And we can just go and increase this maybe to 100 by 100. And then what we can do in the ray node, we can create a point group, ray hit group. We can do a blast, which is pretty much a delete based on an attribute, and we can just blast that attribute and reverse it, and now we just have the ear. We copy our grid and ray and choose the, like that. And then we just move the grid over to the other side. We rotate it just to get the same thing on the other side. Pretty much like that. And then we do select. And we create the merge. Now we have these little ears. So what we can do now, create a new null, out ears, like that. And we want to create a new geo node. We just actually duplicate this one, bunny ear, go inside and just select the other one. Now we have the ears in here. And I think what we have to do now is just generate the groom on this. And let's try if this works. Create groom. Sorry, create guides is what I wanted. This guy, enter. And now we have the groom. It's still everywhere. What we want to do now is guide per point. So now we have the guides on the points. So now it's more or less in a linear row, nice row layout, right? And then we obviously don't want that visually in here. I'm not sure why it's still there. Oh, it's because it's in here. That's the one we want. Okay. And these are the guides. Obviously, we need to do some kind of adjustments here. We need to subdivide our main mesh as well. So actually what can we do? We want to blast it after. I'll just do the subdivide in here. It's not the cleanest way, but it's all right. Do we care? Yeah, we care about the eyes as well. Okay. No. All right, so now we have this subdivided as well. I just want to quickly test if our guides still work. If I subdivided this now, yep, everything works still. We've got our bunny, and we've got this nice straight layout here for our ear hair. All right, so I think we need a lot more, not a lot more, but we need more grids to get a better detail on this, which are in here. So on the side, grid 1, we just want to, let's try 200 and 200. On the same on the other one, 2 and 2. So now this is a bit more dense. Is it still doing what it's supposed to? Yeah, it is. It's obviously not aligning with the bunny geometry, but it's still properly laid out. So next thing is we want to do some kind of chaos, and it's always good to do some kind of chaos. So first thing is we want to create a set length, which is always good. You always want to randomize the crap out of your stuff, so everything is random pretty much, so you just want to go crazy on this. Obviously not too much, but we want this for sure. Longer and shorter hair. You can see on the top here, you can see definitely there is shorter and longer hair. We want to have a clump like this, and we want to have maybe even more guides. We want the profile to be not so much like this. We want it to be more like shaped like thick and then thin towards the tips like this. And let's just actually go back into our geo here, and now I'm actually getting lazy. I'm just copying this parameter, paste as a reference on here. Same for the other one. We can actually paste it twice. So what did I do? Paste as a reference, and we paste it as a reference again. So now we just have one slider. Let's try 350. More hairs, more guides, just more. And this looks a lot better, I think. Go up, go to the groom. Let's just hide. Let's just not hide, show all. Wireframe off. And now you can see actually we have nice little clumps everywhere. They all still facing towards the camera. What I want to do before we do the guide set length, I want to create a curved vect like that, which will mess up my little hierarchy here a bit. Delete the mirror node. We don't want that because we don't have mirrored geometry. And we want to unplug this, shake it off, and first do the advection. So draw curve. Let's just disable the guides. Yeah, just view from there. Okay, so I want to just create some kind of motion to this, right? So I want to draw around the top. I want to draw around here, draw around here. So it's just for me to, or just for the hair to have some kind of flow direction, right? It's not really random. I'm just trying to, I'm looking at this and I'm just seeing how it would be calmed, like brushed, right? So around the top of the ear, then in these little channels that we can also, I think, hide the guide geometry so I can see it even better like this. And then we can do one more like that. So this is now a nice flow we have. And if I view with the guides on, you can see they're all nicely brushed in that direction. Let's see, they need to be lifted. So I couldn't figure out a nice way to lift them within those two nodes from the curved vect. So I just used the lift guides now, and I think this works as well. So the set lift, I just use this and I randomize that. And then we kind of get the look I wanted to have. So we have these hairs lifted, but we still have like a general groom direction, and we can adjust it slightly so it's lying down a slight amount, but it's not too much, something like this. And then we still can reconnect our set length to create random length attributes on here. And then we also want to clump them back again. So let's just do these two things. And now we have, it's more or less now in a pattern. It's like you can see they are pretty much aligned and they go into this grid fashion. In the clump, we can adjust our clump size somewhat. Maybe go a bit lower, 0.05. So now it's less obvious that they are clumped. Can go make it a bit more like this and reduce its tightness so it's not super tight at the tops. Somewhat, but not too much. We want some stray hairs, so not every hair is being clumped in this clump as well. And then we just go up a level and we select our groom, our guides, and we just say generate hair. And then we have this nice fluffy hair on top of this. What we still need to do is we need to increase the density. So right now it's super low. We can just double it. More hair, we can even put it to 5,000, and now we're getting somewhere. You can see now that we get these nice clumps, and it's pretty cool. We get these kind of chunky hairs which are still connected to each other, but you see these clumps, which is very cool. And if you don't like exactly how much, like if you don't like them too much, you can still adjust those parameters somewhat. You can also add some kind of frizziness to it, but I would do that on the hairs itself. So you just do a frizz guides in the hair group, and then you just frizzing up all the hairs as well. Obviously this again is way too much. We can reduce the frequency maybe to 2. So we just get minor adjustments, and we can increase the amplitude. So this is maybe a bit much, so let's just try 0.1 and we get this. And these folds in here are just based on my geometry. Like if you smoothen out the geo a bit, you get smoother look on for this part. Let's just bring in the other hair and see how this looks. I'm just a little bit anxious about this line here. We might need to adjust our ray. Let's see, bringing this hair back. We have a hole there and there, so something got messed up. It might have been due to the subdivisions we did earlier, so let's just try to recache the strokes. Oh no, my whole hair is broken now, so we need to figure out what happened. I think it's my paint, so I think I messed up here. So let's see what this looks. Blasting, subdividing, and then we add the density. Yep. This is it. This is what I figured it happened. So I'm not sure. Recache strokes. We just need to recache them. Amazing. Beautiful. So we want some more hair here for sure. Just that we fill in these little hair gaps. We definitely want hair here. Oops. Shift and middle mouse drag changes the scale. Like this. Shift, middle mouse, click, drag, pretty much. So now we have got lots more hair. And what I want to do, we can actually, using more masks, we can create a mask based on length. So it's a guide mask like this. And in here, there should be an option to do a length mask. And this will only target the longest pieces of hair. So you can see now only the longer pieces are selected. And I just want to randomize them. And we can also use a random mask on top of that. So it's now combining two masks. So not all of these are frizzed up. So let's just do a frizz. It's faster to click on the top. There we go. And we just want to use the blend mask of the guide attribute mask. Go into operations and boost this up. So now we get more of this. Reduce the frequency again. Boost it up. Just creating some more chaos. It's always good to just break things up. All right, so now we have this. Let's go up and view this. All right, so now we have this facial hair and this ear hair, and now we just need to do this last piece, which is his little mouth section. And I'll do this rather quick, but first I want to clean up these guide hairs, which should not be in his face there. So in the guide groom, I do a cut, and I'm just cutting these hairs here. All right. And then we just do another on this guy. We do another groom. We can actually do add fur as well. So now we have the hair. Hair gen 1, hair gen 2. So we've got these two guys. And this would be the bunny, Geo Bunny. All right, so again, we do the same thing. We just paint the density for this area. And right now we have this already. We can just copy it over, and then we just rename the attributes, right? So we just hook these guys up. And right now this is density long braid. We just call it density short. We can copy this parameter name and paste it in this. And then this is all updated. Something like that. All right, so now let's just go out and view these guides and make sure that our override is to skin attribute, and we want to set it to density short. So now we just have the face area here, boost up the density to maybe 25. We can even go further. Let's try maybe 150. And then this should do it. Bring in these guides back. So we now have both guides in place. You can see now this fits pretty good. We can just change the length to maybe 1. We go even further. Let's try this. We want to have more segments. Let's try 20. And then we just want to do some breakup. So let's head back into the groom, and we first want to create our random length. So we do set length, guide length, and then we go change the mode to multiply once we get it. And then we set it to multiply, and we do random, and we just want to make them a bit shorter, like that. We don't want to make them longer, just shorter slightly, so we get these random lengths here. And then we just want to do some really rough frizz again. So I'll go to frizz guides, and we want to make the frequency low, super low, boost up the amplitude even lower. Just some really subtle movements. And then we want to do some clumping, guide clump. And we already have a few clumps now. I don't think it's super clumpy actually. It's less clumpy than it is. But we just want to have some slight amount. We reduce the tightness so we don't have too much going on. Add some stray rates. Yeah, this is too much. Let's go back to 0.1. And what else? We need to groom it some bit. So let's do a screen brush. We just want to give it some direction. Obviously this brush is too strong. We want a soft fall off, angled, round, and then we just want to reduce the intensity. And then we just want to slightly just add some kind of direction to this. Take it down a bit. Yeah, so this is pretty much like how you do this kind of, like it's more clean, right? So now let's just go back up. This is what we got right now. And now if I bring back the hair for this, we need to adjust this as well. So right now, again, our clump, what is it called? Our influence radius is too large, so we generate all these hair all the way outside of the guide. So we just reduce this number. You can see the lower it gets, the more it will only create around the guides. We want it to only create around the guides, not going too much. If we need more hair, we can increase the density. So what we need to do is reduce the thickness maybe to 0.015. Less thicker hair. We do the same thing with the tapering here. Move it over, and this guy we move up like that. And what else? We want more. Let's try 400. So now we already have the same clumping, right? We don't want that. So we need to increase our radius now. Like this. And you can see if it's now too clumpy, we don't have enough guides. So I want to reduce this hair density, and I'll just increase the guides to, let's say, 450. And then in here I need to recache them because I did some grooming on it. All right, now we have a lot more hair. And now our clumping is again too aggressive. So we need to reduce the clump size by maybe 0.5. Less clumping going on. Go up. This is now what we have. And I think we still need a lot more hair. So let's just bring this back up to 300 maybe. There we go. So now if I go into the guide and I disable the clumping, we should have a lot more uniform hair. So the clumping disabled looks pretty uniform. So if I bring that back, we just need to adjust this. It's too strong, I think. So what we need to do is the tightness, reduce that, change the shape a bit, and maybe we don't even want that. Maybe we don't even want clumping as much as I thought we would. So if I just disable the node. All right, so let's bring back the other hair. And this has a shader on, the rest doesn't. This is like a Houdini viewport box. It's nothing crazy though, it's not too bad. So we can go in here and we can all give it the shader we need. So this has hair shader 1, this has no hair shader, and this does not have a hair shader. So now everything has a nice shader to it. And this is now, at least for this tutorial, what I wanted to show. So the next thing we do now is we just very quickly create the shaders for this. I don't want to go into much detail because we are super long already, but this is what grooming is. It takes some time to get to look right. So now we head into the material context, and I am creating an Arnold material builder, and this will be my base. And in here, I'm just creating a surface shader, hooking these guys up like that. Oops, not there. Here, go up, duplicate or copy paste this. This is our eye shader, and then we do another paste, and this would be our long hair, or let's do hair long. Go in here, do a hair shader, get rid of this, connect, go up, copy paste. This is hair short, and this is hair ear. So now we've got 5 shaders, and we just quickly want to apply them in the object context. So snout gets a shader short, hair is this, gets the shader long, ear gets the ear shader. Then we have eyes, get the eye shader, and base is the rest, gets this. All right, then what I want to do is quickly create a camera and do control click on the camera. So we generate a camera, change the view node, make it higher than wide. So let's do 1200, and then we increase this. Go back to the camera, make sure to actually lock it, and then zoom in, and then frame it like this, and maybe change, actually it's fine like this. And then we want to quickly create an Arnold light like that. I have a studio preset like this. We don't want to view it in the viewport. Disable. We don't want so little samples, put on 2 at least. Go to the out context, create an Arnold node, disable motion blur, which I always have on default. Make sure for hair you need more spec. Let's try 3. Just for the sake of this, we want to reduce the depth to 1 for the diffuse. Let's see what else. We want progressive on. And I think if I hit save, go to the render view, render from Arnold, camera 1, hit render. All right, I just disabled the hair first, so we can just tweak the base materials a bit faster. So let's go into the base, select the surface shader, and let's go to the base color. And we just pick something more yellowish, desaturated a lot, and maybe make it a bit lighter. And then we want to increase the roughness to 0.65 maybe. This seems to work, and we maybe want to make it a bit redder. Something like this. For the eyes, very basic stuff. We just do a black material and we make it shiny like a mirror, so we get these nice plastic look. Maybe some kind of roughness to it. And then we just go to the object context. We stop the render and we generate our snout hair first. All right, the default shader is a black setup, so we just want to start, let's just start with the top hair here of the ear, and I show you a few nice tricks so you can randomize the things you need to. So let's go to material context, go to the hair long, and what we first want to do is, because we want to plug in a ramp to control the color from root to tip, we cannot just use the melanin. So what I want to do is just disable the melanin, put it to a fully 0, which means a white shader, fully white I mean. And then also what I want to do is create a color, or is it called ramp RGB like this, and I just want to connect this up directly to the output shader like this, so it's pretty much like a constant right now. I want to change the pattern to be V, and I want to make sure that use implicit is to curves only. So now you can see that we get this little ramp in the shader, which is perfect. And then we just need to change the colors as we need them to be. So let's just pick something reddish, like brown red, I guess. And we do the same for the tip. Pick the same color, but make desaturated, make it lighter. and maybe move the ramp so it's let's see, maybe do this so we have some kind of fall off still going on. And this would be that. So what if we want to still randomize each hair? So that's also fairly easy. You just do a jitter color or a color jitter, and the data type is int in what is it, user data int, and this is supposed to be ID for the value, and then this should hook up to from data, input, and then we connect the color. Sorry, this was not correct. This needs to go to the seed actually. So the color for my ramp goes into the input like that, and the int goes into the data into the data input slot like that. And if I connect these up, I shouldn't see any difference, but now if I change the hue, for instance, you can see now that a few fibers or hairs change the hue. So this is very cool because I can add some minor randomization to each of the fibers. It should be subtle. This is not super random in the reference, but there's something. There's always some slight amount of randomization going on. We can play with the gain slightly, so some hairs are a bit lighter than others, like super subtle stuff, and you can already see the nice variation we get just by doing this. Alright, so let's see how this looks with the shader applied. Alright, so it looks a bit dark, so what I want to do is just bring up the roughness, maybe 0.5, because it's not a super shiny hair, and just doing this helps a lot to just sell the look. It's almost maybe a bit too saturated on the root, so what we can do in the ramp, we can just remove this center piece, just move it up slightly, and maybe just desaturate it a bit. And now we get the root, the tip color is a bit lighter. It might be a bit much, but it's obviously a creative thing, so it's up to you to change it. So now let's jump over to the face hair here. And I just want to copy the same thing. So I'm just copying all the nodes actually. Go to the short hair and just paste it in here and hook this up instead. Like that. So now we have the same shader. And we still need to, no, I'm not sure why it's actually so light. I think we just need to restart it quickly. Alright, so now this is with the same shader applied, so now we have pretty much the same look everywhere. So first I want to work on the face here and make sure that my color is not the same. We definitely want to desaturate it a lot more. So let's just go in this guy and just go to saturation here and just desaturate it even more and make maybe a bit more yellow. And then in the tips, we just make them even wider. Maybe like that. Let's see how this looks if I connect the shader back up. Okay, we definitely see some variation now. And for the last piece, we just want to check out the groom on the ears, and they're supposed to be a bit more shiny than the rest. So let's just go to the ear, hair ear. I copied the shader already in here. So first let's do the same kind of desaturation we did before on the root and on the tip. Make it a bit yellow. Like that. So now we have both in place. And what I want to do for this guy, I just want to reduce the roughness so it's a bit more reflective, which gives us a bit more shaping like that. And one thing I want to do is, I think the hairs in the face are a bit too thin. So in the object context, I just want to go to the snout hair and make sure it's a bit thicker. Maybe try 0.04. Let's see how this looks. And one thing I forgot to set up is before we actually do render hair, what is interesting or important is depending what kind of style you want. For short hair, it's mostly better to use the mode with thick. And then also the basis should be B-spline, which actually curves your hair a lot nicer than the default one, the automatic one. So let's just move all to thick over here and then B-spline. Save the render and let's just frame it a bit better so we don't see his ugly naked body. So scene view, let's just zoom in here, go back to cam 1, lock it, maybe like this, and go to the camera settings instead and change the focal length to maybe 85. So something like that. We can play around with depth of field if we want, but I think it doesn't matter much for this sake here. Just to finish it off, I just quickly draw some density on his torso here, so it's just not super clean. And I'll just use the hair gen here for this guy. All right, so this finishes up the render. So just looking at this, I spot already lots of things which don't work for me, but it's just me going over it and spending more time to make it work. So one thing I notice is that the snout, the shorter hair here is definitely not correct. It's too clumpy and it's just too dark. It needs to be brighter. And I think the thickness for the longer hair is too thin. Looking at the reference here, they are definitely wider in diameter, which I don't have. They look too thin here. What I think works nice is the hair here in the ears. It's maybe too fluffy. It's not, as you can see, these lines, which I don't have. But in general, I think this is actually working the best of all of them. Again, this is a tutorial to show you how to do grooming, at least like use a few techniques. And I think those showed pretty well. Yeah, so the next thing I would do is work on the snout area and obviously the shoulder pieces. I just botched it up very quickly together. So yeah, I hope you like this more in-depth tutorial about how to set up a groom, how to set up guides, how to manipulate them, how to generate the hair on top of that, and just all in all how to work with different sections of a asset and paint certain density masks to just work on those certain areas. And I think this video showed you a good overview how to set it up. Again, this is not a one-to-one match to my reference, and it was not intended to be. It was just to show you the process. And I hope in the future I will see more from you, like see more grooms you did using these techniques or whatnot. And I would highly appreciate if you would share your renders with me. And again, if you like what I do, leave me a thumbs up below and leave a comment as well. I always like to read those. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys. Stay healthy out there. You know, it's a bit crazy times out there today or this coming weeks and whatnot. So thanks again, and I hope I will see you in the next video.